intro again. Here we are once again.
Are you gonna let me talk?
No, not today.
That's actually pretty annoying. I got warmed up and everything. I thought you were gonna let me talk on the intro. Fuck, dude.
Well, you don't always get what you want. That's not how that works. And also, I can change my mind.
Well, I can change my mind too. Jerk.
Yo. Is anybody out there? Is this thing on? Is your refrigerator running? Think about it. Damn, guys. Well, yeah, yet another day has gone past. We are inching ever forwards into the future. I hope you had a good day. I had a very exhausting, long, sort of not soul crushing. I don't have a adjective for it, but I'm definitely feeling the burn of burning the candle at so many angles. I'm burning that candle at all possible angles, and yeah, I guess that's just me getting trapped into what society wants me to do, getting achievements unlocked and getting those clicks, getting those likes, but not just the digital kind, but the non-digital kind, because yeah, even though online is fully gamified and exploiting all of your dopamine loops, obviously that's going to spill over into real life stuff, because that's how behavior works. You do it one time, you do it one way, and you enjoy it, so you do it more. And next thing you know, you're gamifying all of your relationships, and yeah, what are we gonna do to stop that? Can't do a whole lot, I don't think. At least not at the moment. Now, tell me what's going on here. Resolve it. My transport seems to be frozen. I'm guessing a disk is spinning up. There we go. Now we just pushed on through it. I don't like it when that happens, because it throws me off my 33 mark. Everything is meticulously timed down to the millisecond. So let's get into some actual things that are happening real quick soon. But obviously the intro segment is standing tall. Here we have another frame from what is this show called again? Titans. And their color scheme, shows seem to pick often three colors that are chosen as sort of their mantra, their through line. And if you are having a good color correctionist and all of that kind of stuff, then yeah, every single frame will turn into a painting reflecting these colors. And yeah, here's just one I chose at random. We have the red, white, and the blue in the background. There's a red light up here, obviously blue at the bar, and this guy is like an all-American hero. And I guess the show is also just very sort of focused on the American plight and existence. And, well, what can you say about that? How do they connect things to other things? It's through these kinds of symbols, right? So subconsciously you will be thinking about America or maybe France, but in general, sort of all of those ideas that get wrapped up with those colors for freedom and liberty and whatever else the flag and those colors mean to you, it'll all be brought out subconsciously and added into the mix. So No real surprise for me that the Titans color scheme is using these American flag colors. So yeah, I can show you a bunch more frames, but I didn't screenshot them. But it's very continuous in this show, and it will be in any other show that you happen to stumble upon and watch with any sort of focus. You will see the colors as well. I have no doubt. Now let's just burn through some news real quick. There seems to be a flood of articles bashing Mr. Sanders at the moment. The election is definitely roiling forward. Before long, it will be September, and I'm sure something crazy is going to happen before September because that's just sort of the feeling I get. The stakes are high these days. But I wanted to run through a couple of these stories, just addressing the issue that this man is starting to lead everywhere and really pick up steam. And first, we have this New York Times article saying that it's obviously Russia again, and they just really want to get this guy elected. That's their main goal in life, is to get the socialism going in America. And yeah, just to back it up a second, it really seems like I used to think this guy was coming out of the grassroots and really just like he wanted to actually make all this change happen, and he probably does also at the same time, but he's definitely been latched into and hooked into by the powers that be, and is being wielded as a weapon just like any other politician, I would say, because a lot of his ideas are in line with the end station, Brave New World kind of situation that we're headed towards. Things do need to become more collectivized and socialistic, and a lot of those American concepts of liberty and freedom. Here we have the red, white, and blue again. A lot of that has to get tamped down and pushed to the side as we realize more and more that, yes, we are just one big happy family and need to work together. And I think this is how this works a lot of the time. You bash or degrade something that you actually want to have happen, and then just like we're doing here and lots of other people, like, right, the media hates that guy, so maybe he's really got the best ideas, and why would the media be so upset? It's the same story with Trump, but in the end I think it is the agenda that they're hoping to push through, and having this sort of first stage rollout be in opposition, have all this negative press around it, somehow gets it gets people, depending on your experience in media consumption up until that point, it gets you even more in the camp with that person and those ideals. And yeah, I think they're doing a great job doing that, because if you are an honest fan of Bernie and you read stuff like this, you will be pushed further into his camp. And yeah, I would argue that is the whole plan, a big part of it. And I was just sort of laughing comparing these two articles, right? The New York Times is saying, obviously, Russia monster, gotta smash that Russia button. But then we roll over to a Canadian publication, and yeah, I guess it's a little more opinion based. Can anyone catch up to Bernie Sanders now? And I guess the answer is no. I think that's the answer that we're expecting in our mind from there. But yeah, he obviously seems to be crushing it. And I guess Canada has no desire to tear him down. Canada's much further along, I would say, in this social movement that we're headed towards. And so obviously, yeah, they're going to be supporting that. Well, and obviously, if you're Dick Van Dyke, then you want to support him. Your fellow older people. Let's rally together and support this guy, because even the older people, they know, they're wiser beyond their years. They understand that his ideas and everything that's going there is, well, the right way to go. And right, this Dick Van Dyke is definitely in one of those clubs. Hard to say exactly which one, but a very important figure for decades. almost half a century at this point. And so I would expect anything he says also to be vetted and sort of controlled and then pushed out. And somebody like that definitely does have a lot of influence with those older voters. And right, no mention of Russia here from the Hill. Oh, but Wired's got to pull it out. Wired's, I guess, a little more in the direction of the New York Times. Russia doesn't want Bernie Sanders; it wants chaos. The point of Kremlin interference has always been to find democracy's loose seams and pull, right? Because it really is. It's where we're in this big fighting match that I guess we've been fighting since the Cold War, and it shows no signs of actually slowing down and stopping in any meaningful way. And they seem to have backed down from the Russian narrative in the last couple, say, who's it called? Last couple months, I guess, years. They were really smashing that button, I guess, back when was that? About a year ago, and everything was Trump and Russia and that whole story. And they definitely backed down from that a little bit. But here, just today, it seems like this whole concept is surging again. Yeah, because the election, it's happening. It's happening. It's happening. I just want to
give a quick shout out.
We got Grant Harper in the house. Good to see you, dude. Hope you are doing well. Now I always had the impression that you could post almost literally anything on Twitter. I guess they still do allow porn and other sort of graphic material as well. And generally with politics, they seem to have been staying out of it mostly and not doing stuff like this. So I thought this was interesting to see that they were pulling pro Bloomberg accounts, saying that they're fake. And I'm sure, right, if you really have, if you work over there at Twitter and you have access to all the network data, that bot accounts should appear pretty obvious. It's not exactly rocket science, and bots definitely do, right? AI is not advanced enough, and there's just not enough computing resources available to your average bot farm to make something extremely believable. And I guess with the IP addresses and all that kind of stuff, you can track and see what's going on there. But them shutting down sock puppet accounts for Bloomberg, obviously this guy has enough money to buy millions of fake accounts and get the word out there. But I guess this is their main clue here when multiple different accounts are posting the same exact text seconds apart from each other. Then that definitely is sort of a giveaway that it's been, yeah, that those are bots. Hard to get around that. And this is really just the beginning. I'm sure this is all just gonna ramp up until we're even more sick of it than we are now. Because this isn't an election, it's a civil war, and our side isn't necessarily winning. Well, Salon, who is our side? Is it democracy? Well, I guess they definitely straight up hate this guy, and are obviously not on his side. I guess they're making that blatantly clear. There's no more sort of hinting at it anymore. It's just straight up the facts. If we don't end him, we lose everything. Right? So stoking another fire, all of this is sort of just tending to different ideas that they're forming and shaping and pushing onto the next stage, right? I think we're almost at that phase where a bunch of people, if this guy actually did get murdered and his head exploded and splattered all over live television, that there would be not riots, but parades sanctioned by major media companies that did gigantic celebrations, and they would play it over and over again with his head exploding. And right, it's that moral relativism that they always love to talk about, getting people to not have principles, basically, to have it so in your life there is nothing that is a hard and fast rule, such as don't kill people and then enjoy it and then make a parade for it, right? Generally, that's not what you should do. You should generally not do that sequence of events. But what if it was Trump, right? Then maybe it would be okay because that guy's a fucking asshole, right? According to Salon. And again, right, I'm not picking a side here. We're just looking at the pushes, the nudges, the encouragements that we're reading here in these headlines and articles and trying to tease that apart. Well, why is it so mission critical for years at this point that we hate this guy? Why is that it's more important than anything? They've spent billions of dollars making sure for a guaranteed fact that if you are living in the mainstream, like I guess if you're watching the show you aren't, but for everybody else, that if you are and you're reading this article and you're honestly on board with all of it, that yes, murder, assassination, that's on the table as a good thing. And if you can somehow reverse your mind back to before he got elected, that really all of our minds worked differently back then, because all of this is very effective. It's honestly hard to escape, even if you're not fully on board, right? Even if you do have your discernment and you're trying to watch out. That's how good they've gotten with all this stuff. It really just affects brain chemistry, and it's very powerful. So I guess my advice is to not engage, because it's sapping all of our energy, and it's not the truth, and also nothing really that we can do. There's nothing we can do about it, right? And all of this has been set up a while ago, and so just the idea of trying to, I don't know, even trying to figure it out. I go back and forth, like, why spend the energy to figure this out when my energy could be spent in a different way? But yeah, at the same time, it all just sort of fascinates me, and it's hard to look away from this ridiculous train wreck that we're just living in. Let's get into Mr. Albert Pike just for a second here, because I was talking about this the other day, and I realized I don't know if I've given sort of the basics about Mr. Albert Pike. He's definitely a fascinating figure, and worth reading some of his writings, regardless of where you are on the whole spectrum, whether you're full blown, you got the full blown conspiracy feelings, or you're just a regular person. This man in more ways than one sort of has shaped our society. And when you go back and read these older books from the 19th century, it's different. People's brains work differently back then. There wasn't as much spread of information, and these guys knew that, and I guess the further back you go, they have a harder time picturing what's going to happen in the future as far as information spreading. So they may speak a little more candidly, and just in general lay it out there. Although everything about sort of Freemasonry it does the same thing that we're talking about, where something will be presented as truth or facts, and it may only be presented as such to a lower degree, and that once you reach a higher degree, you're read in and told that, well, yeah, we told you that this was the thing, but in reality, this is actually what's going on. And Albert Pike talks a lot about that in his book that he wrote. That's everybody's favorite part. So, right, 1809, he was born. He was an American author, poet, orator, jurist, and prominent member of the Freemasons. That being the most important part. He was, I guess, the Grand Master during this whole important section He fought in the Civil War and did a bunch of sort of general kind of stuff. And I guess that, yeah, you get to meet some cool people and get worked in there. So I guess he didn't join until 1840. That was a little later. I'm not a math scientist. He became extremely active and, yeah, pretty quickly, I guess not super quickly. That took him 20 years. He was elected Sovereign Grand Commander of the Scottish Rite Southern Jurisdiction, right? So not the whole thing, but the American sort of section of it. And he remained Grand Commander for the rest of his life. Interesting. Total of 32 years. And a lot of this like number obsession stuff that I seem to constantly be talking about, a lot of it has come from reading his work, right? So the most famous thing that he probably did was write this book, The Morals and Dogma of the Ancient and Accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. And it really is sort of like the entry-level manual. But when you become a Mason, I think they're still required to read it. But it's definitely open and published. And if you are in any way interested in this subject, I would it's almost mandatory to go and read. You don't have to read the whole thing, but even just kind of skip around and it'll get you a feeling for how this man's brain worked, what he was up to, and just the general vibe back then. And that's pretty early in the book. Actually, he talks about this subject of duplicity and lying even to a trusted confidant in order to protect their journey, basically. That if certain information is doled out too soon, that it will possibly stunt or destroy the growth of that person. That they need to be shielded from certain facts of things, maybe before reaching a certain point of enlightenment. And he lays it all out there very, very early on. And right here it is. In America, Pike is still considered an eminent and influential Freemason, primarily in the Scottish Rite. And then he died. We don't care so much about that. But I wanted to get to this part: figure in conspiracy theory. So Pike has become a key figure for conspiracy theorists, which are who are they again? I don't really want to get into that. Some people claim that stories about Pike, including his quote forecast of three worlds, are bogus and derive from the Taxel hoax, which I guess we should look at that next, because that ties into this whole thing. But this is really I almost want to edit this right now. This sounds like Trump right here. Some people claim that means that's hearsay and there's no documented evidence for this. But some people claim that pigs fly in the sky. Some people claim that stories about Pike, including his quote forecast of three wars, are bogus. Some people claim that this thing that he said is fake. And that's just really sort of a hilarious thing. Oh, okay, he's mentioned in National Treasure. Well, there's a lot more that he's mentioned and in reference to. This is a very short paragraph here. Okay, so wait, I think before we get into the Taxel hoax, let's just see what they're talking about, because, well, it's interesting. It's interesting. This isn't actually in his book. It's from a letter that I'm trying to remember who he wrote it to. But this apparently is a letter and worth checking out. The Masonic religion should be, by all of us initiates of the high degrees, maintained in the purity of the Luciferian doctrine. Yes, Lucifer is God, and unfortunately, Adonai, Jesus, is also God. Unfortunately, for the internal law is that there is no light without shade, no beauty without ugliness, no white without black, for the absolute can only exist as two gods, darkness being necessary to serve, to light to serve as its foils, as the oh, sorry, I fucked that one up. Darkness being necessary to light to serve as its foils, as the pedestal is necessary to the statue, and the brake to the locomotive. And right, so it is also hinted at in Morals and Dogma that in the end, once right, this is this shielding. Once you, they don't tell you this right away when you join the Freemasonries, but once you get further towards the top, they start to talk about this light bringer and light and how important that is, and that it is basically everything. There is no existence, and there was nothing worth even discussing and talking about before light was created. So whoever created that light, whoever is the light bringer, that is the true God. That's the one that we really need to thank and worship, because otherwise we'd just be sitting in here in the dark. We'd be totally bored, probably. Maybe, I don't know, not eating a lot. And so that's laid out in this letter. It is mentioned. I should probably try to find some of those quotes from Moral and Dogma, but Luciferianism is definitely mentioned directly in the book. And this, because I was talking about Islam the other day, and this is the conspiracy theory quote that they're talking about. Because in the letter he lays the 3 world wars out. Right, the First World War must be fought about in order to permit the Illuminati to overthrow the power of the czars in Russia and make that country a fortress of atheistic communism. The divergences caused by the agents of the Illuminati between the British and Germanic empires will be used to foment this war. At the end of the war, communism will be built and used to destroy the other governments and in order to weaken religions. Which is interesting, right? After that happened, yeah, it's definitely true. Communism sort of spread throughout the land and was used as this sort of weapon to go into other countries and fight over, well, are we communist or are we not? And so that all seems to have played out. Second World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences between the fascists and the political Zionists. This war must be fought about so the Nazism is destroyed and the political Zionism be strong enough to institute a foreign state of Israel in Palestine. Well, that definitely also happened. During the Second World War, international communism must become strong enough in order to balance Christendom, which would be then restrained and held in check until the time when we would need it for the final social cataclysm. So a lot of that sounds like that also happened, right? Palestine got started, and then there was sort of this battle between, America and communism, and all of it did sort of increase in this whole period. And the interesting part is the Third World War, which I guess is probably in the Google Calendar, which I really want to take a look at, but I guess probably won't get to. The Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by agentur of the Illuminati between the political Zionists and the leaders of the Islamic world. That was not brought up before. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam and political Zionism mutually destroy each other through exhaustion and just endless sort of fighting. And that, basically all of this really was planned from a very early start. And that, well, it's like, I don't know, building a Lego or any sort of complex project. You can't just go out there and, I don't know, shoot everybody or just start putting the bricks together. You have to sort of have a plan, and there might be one module that you have to build first and then recombine that with another one, and then those parts will be stronger together and able to maybe push them over the top, right? And so that's the whole discussion here. Is what's going on? What is going on? Is this letter real? I guess this is from like a sketchy website, News 24. So, but some people are saying this. I really should look and try to find the proper letter, right? Here's another sort of sketchy website. So I wouldn't expect this information to be laid out in any sort of major publication, but here it is. Yeah, here it is on these sketchy websites. And I've seen these quotes many, many times in many different ways, and it's hard to, I don't know. I guess you can't deny that it came from him and that these are his ideas, but that it just definitely seems to be a big part of it. the whole plan forward, and a lot of what they're talking about here has already come to pass. And we're seeing this ramp up just recently as the Middle East just further deteriorates and melts into some sort of unrecognizable, mess, never to be recovered its former glory. And obviously, there's got to be an agenda there. If there wasn't, that would be the weird thing. If it was like, no, this is just what's happening. It's not a big deal. And before we call it close here, I really did just want to sort of randomly here. I scrolled to a random place that you could find the full text of Morals and Dogma pretty easily. And parts of it really are inspiring. It is a lot about sort of our place in this universe and the controlling forces that drive this world and the people in it, and how if you understand them maybe a little bit better, that you can live beyond these problems, these issues, and live above them. And that's a big part of, I think, what becoming a Freemason is that you're read into certain concepts and ideas that aren't really taught in school, but that are in fact completely universal and, well, just generally good advice for living. But damn, I hear that bumper music starting again. We almost cut through this episode, guys.
That's right. It's the end of the show again. What even happened? It's hard to say. But I'm guessing that we'll probably do another show at some point in the near future. That's what I'm guessing. I can't help myself. I want to talk about the truth. I want to try to figure it out, even if I actually can't. But I might just try.
Okay, so just real quick, let me give you a quick quote here from Morals and Dogma. It is genius that gets power, and its prime lieutenants are force and wisdom. And he's always like full capitalizing words to make you think of them as the actual archetypal idea. And then you start to think about, well, how do these ideas come together? Genius's prime lieutenants are force and wisdom. The unruliest of men bend before the leader that has the sense to see and the will to do. It is genius that rules with godlike power, that unveils with its counselors the hidden human mysteries, cuts asunder with its word the huge knots, and builds up with its word the crumbled ruins. At its glance fall down the senseless idols whose altars have been on all the high places and in all the sacred groves. Dishonesty and imbecility stand abashed before it. Its single yea or nay revokes the wrongs of ages and is heard among the future generations. Its power is immense because its wisdom is immense. Genius is the sun of the political sphere. Force and wisdom, its ministers, are the orbs that carry its light into darkness and answer it with their solid reflecting truth. Damn dog. Yeah, so obviously, I mean, the language it's like 1850s. It's obviously very sort of flowery, florid language that we're talking about here. But at the same time, there is still a lot of wisdom in there, and it's worth cutting through some of that floridness. And yeah, basically just to try to get your mind out of this chaos that we're trapped in here in the modern age, where everything is sort of a bite-sized propaganda piece that you're supposed to chew off while avoiding some awkward social situation by looking at your phone. Morals and Dogma is like a full-on book. It's got a whole bunch of pages, and it'll sort of slow your brain down. It'll make you picture and think about, yeah, what was it like that back then in the 1800s for ultra-rich people, and what kind of things did they think about? How did they talk about stuff? And well, maybe some of it'll rub off on you. But it's also true that, right, this information is readily available. You can Google it in a second. You could read the book, but I'd say, I don't know, a tiny fraction of the population has even confronted themselves with these ideas. And that's yet again a big win for these guys. They know that they can freely put all of the information out there ready at your fingertips, and you will just straight up ignore it. I appreciate that, Grant Harper. I'm doing my best out here. Keep it real, everybody. Leave me a comment. I really want to know what you think. I do. I'm being honest.
Take it easy. Take it easy. We'll catch you on the flip side. Wait,